Bless.
Something's in bloom.
It's that time of the year, all the allergy season. That's what in the newspaper said.
Ready when you are, Carol. Okay, let's get this meeting. Call it to order. 5:30. Yeah. Fine. Desert Healthcare District. Can we have a roll call, please, Andrea?
Director Perezkiel?
Yes.
Director Shore?
Yes.
Director Delara?
Yeah, here.
Director Logston?
Here.
Secretary Barraza? Vice President Rodriguez?
Here.
And President Rogers?
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, may I have approval of the agenda? We can motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we have public comment on the agenda. Those people that can have a public comment for items that are not on the agenda will have 3 minutes in time to express themselves. Is there any public comment at this time?
We received an email, just a short, I'm just gonna paraphrase it, from Brad Anderson, Rancho Mirage resident, and it's concerning 2 of the grants that are up for approval under strategic funding. The first one was the Regents of the University of California, Riverside. And he just kind of mentions that he's in opposition to dispersing tax collected dollars for such a narrow scope of claim services to individuals in certain regions of the Coachella Valley. He refers to the term of underserved population, and basically that it's recommended to abandon and decline the proposal due to its clear motivational aspect of medical research of children's behavioral health of a selected population of individuals that was stated in the identified as underserved. And then he also talks about those targeted Coachella Valley families may be financially unable to avoid the district influence into their homes and livelihoods through other organizations. And again, this will be available for the minutes as he's requested. And then the other grant for St. John's, he's in opposition to desire to, he's talked about tax collected dollars being expelled to an organization that desires to install themselves within a community with federal government resources, their mission to follow certain migrating populations of people. I guess he's referring to the fact that St. John also has a large base in Los Angeles area. And then he just goes on to about certain populations, and he asked again that that the board declines their proposal to seek out a regional approach solution that is operated by the district.
Comment?
I'm just wondering if those comments would have been more appropriate when those items were actually brought up. Because this is public comments for items not listed on the agenda.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right, Director Delora. My apologies. Right.
You know, but given that he's not here, I mean, we could, express those. You can take into consideration his comments under public comment. I mean, I think your point is correct, but I think it's okay if we just go ahead and summarize them under public comment. We can move along.
Okay. Are there any other public comments?
Martha Olvera. You can really put the podium up and.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today and allowing me to express gratitude for all the support that Desert Healthcare has supported Galilee Center. Our extended shelter and with Galilee Center has been very much supported by the Desert Healthcare with mobile clinic and funding for a few years. Our extended shelter received over 2,800 families and individuals that have stayed at our shelter with less than 3 years. Currently, 167 families and individuals have rented apartments here in the Coachella Valley. 98% success rate of stability, which they maintain their housing, income, jobs, having their children enrolled in school. And they continue to need support here in the Coachella Valley where we come to assist. Our emergency services help migrant farm workers and our community or immigrants that need support that are low income. Our weekly food baskets in 2024 alone, we gave out almost 13,000 food baskets to our community. We also give out infant services, diapers, and formula to children 0 to 3, which 3,500 children receive these items so that families can continue to provide funds in any other area they may need, like rental, utility, and food for their children and their families. We also have our senior services that are very low income, and we have over 250 seniors that come on a monthly basis to receive protein shakes, adult diapers, and food baskets. We also assist with rental and utility, and over 200 families receive those assistance. This is just a part of what Galilee receives and what we do for our community. Our partnership with DHC has also led us to have medical appointments for all of these clients. We have received over 1,200, very close to 1,300, and it still continues. As a matter of fact, they were there today. So we really appreciate all the support that we've had with Desert Healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
We do. Gloria Gomez is also with the Galilee Center.
Like Martha said, I want to express our thank you for allowing us to talk to you about what's going on at Galilee Center and what we have done in the past years. Have you noticed that we have helped the asylum seekers for the past 3 years or since 2018? We have received so many families, individuals, and these are families and individuals that are legal in the United States because they do have asylum in the United States. And we are able to provide them with Social Security so they could go out and look for jobs. We are able to provide them with medical assistance, like Martha said, and many other things. Unfortunately, with the change of the climate that we know, our political things that happen, we have lost some of our funding at this point. We still have in our long-term shelter 15 families that need our help. And we have over 200 families in the Coachella Valley that stay locally and they are working and they need support. What we do basically after they leave our premises, we continue helping them and talking to them to making sure that they're good citizens in the United States, making sure that their children are going to school, making sure that they pay their rent. We continue going on. But we have 2 things that happened to us this past week. They called me last week and saying that in January, FEMA would not be allowed to reimburse us. And then the second, well, we were already in the middle of February. So imagine how the agencies kind of was a shocking for us. We knew it was coming, but it was not that much. Then this morning I received, or yesterday late, they say possible they will help us out. But nevertheless, we continue needing your help and your support. And that's why we are here, asking you to consider us to be able to help us out as we move forward with this new administration and the way that we're doing things.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for talking. Any questions?
Appreciate it. Any board comments? Thank you so much.
Not good.
Just, Madam Chair, just for clarification, this was public comment, so we're not really allowed to engage.
Right,
Not that we don't have questions, but we just cannot engage.
Okay,
correct.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Any more public comment? Hearing none, let's move on to consent agenda. We have several items on the consent agenda. Did anybody want to pull them for further discussion? Go ahead.
I have two. One is a very simple thing. The board minutes, I just want to make sure that it is corrected that I was not at the meeting on page 2 of 4. Page 22 of 340 to remove my name from the program committee again. I think I left a long lasting impression because okay, so that was one, page 22 of 340, just to make that correction. And I would like to pull number 3, the agreement for the Hawker Productions for discussion.
That was 3A.
3A, yes.
Okay.
And I'll move approval of the remaining items.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, any comments? Any public comments? Do we need roll call?
Yes, Director Fresco,
Yes.
Director Shore,
Yes.
Director Delara,
Yes.
Director Loxton,
Yes.
Secretary Baraza,
Yes.
Vice President Rodriguez.
Yes.
And President Rogers.
Yes. So we take up 3A now for discussion. Did you want to?
If I may, so I just wanted to bring up some of the items that we talked about at the committee, on pages 55 to 73. During the committee, it was a really good committee meeting. I'm really excited about this event coming up. I think staff is doing a great job in putting this on, but just wanted to share with the board, that some of the things that I thought were noteworthy to bring up today is the fact that last year we had the first event and there was many lessons learned. And a couple of the things that came up at the committee meeting was to ensure that we could start getting sponsorships early on. And our CEO mentioned that a committee is going to be working on sponsorships and they are already starting to do that. And also the cost of admittance, that there's some discussion about whether there should be a low amount charged to attendees. And that would be to help us to track the people that are signing up, because we want to make sure that if people are signing up, that they actually will show up, because we want to make sure we get a good head count and not be wasteful of people that do not show up. And that could be accomplished by having a low fee, that people are going to show up if they pay a low fee. So that was another good thing. And also the transportation, the committee mentioned that there's possibly a second day of doing tours, and that they're going to be talking to Sunline to explore the possibility of having some free transportation. So all of those things I think are really good steps that just to keep us informed of the progress being made on this conference.
Great. Any other discussion? Do I have a motion to approve the contract with Hawker Productions?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Director Fresco,
Yes.
Director Shore,
Yes.
Director Delara,
Yes.
Director Loxton,
Yes.
Secretary Baraza. Yes. Vice President Rodriguez.
Yes.
And President Rogers.
Yes. Next, we have presentations. Immigration issues and resources for undocumented Coachella Valley residents. Do we have Liz Gallegos,
We do.
legal center available?
So, do you know
That's her. Should be Tony.
which one? There's two
Tony.
Dodex.
There's Tony.
This one right here?
Yeah.
So let's make her a panelist so she can show it though. We're gonna make you a panelist, Liz. So if you could accept that, that'd be great. And you can show yourself on camera if possible. There you are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Luz Gallegos with Todec Legal Center. And thank you to Alejandro for reaching out for the opportunity to present of the reality of what we have been doing and the resources and what's happening right now as far as it relates to immigration issues here in the Coachella Valley. So as you may all know, Todec, we've been responding to immigrant situations for over 4 decades, but right now we have been doing quite a bit of work around community education, around Know Your Rights, making sure that our community here in Coachella Valley and beyond with the regions that we serve know their rights and know how to implement the rights, and also the part of prevention that our teams have been helping community members so they can prepare for the worst, hoping it does not get here. The reality is very different to other experiences we've had in the past. As an immigrant justice organization, you know, we continue to see that history continues to repeat itself. The only difference is the messaging that's coming from the White House that's really creating a lot of fear amongst our immigrant farm worker populations here in the region. As you all know, Coachella Valley is a border region. So we are all used to seeing Border Patrol patrolling our streets. We run into them at the gas station, at the coffee shop, at restaurant and shops. So this has been very constant in our region, but our community has learned to live with this reality because it's something we have to accept if we're living here in the Valley. But the difference is the fear and the messaging that continues to hit our community, not only through media, the news, but social media, and it really instilling a lot of fear amongst community members. What we have been doing is creating different strategies before election day, because we knew that as a region that's already vulnerable, because we have immigration in our streets on the daily, we needed to be ready to respond to whatever situation and outcome the election would have. So with that said, we continue to doubled up on our legal staff, but then also on our volunteers and all our partners in the Coachella Valley, which I know Galilee's there, and they've been very supportive as they do with their ongoing job work that they do that is so impactful and meaningful. But then all the other partners like the healthcare district, and really bringing everybody together under Coachella Valley Resiste, which is a collective of Coachella Valley organizations that are rooted in local and based out of the Coachella Valley, that we have been coming together to talk, strategize, and implement. So through this space, we've been talking and sharing resources that we have at the organization to help partners, but then also to train partners and as far as how we're all gonna resist with education, what's hitting the ground. As far as, red cards, making sure that red cards are available. Though that we've dispersed over 500,000 red cards throughout the region. And red card is a tool that we've had for many years that provides undocumented immigrants, especially those that don't have access to language or having access to English language, a way to protect themselves and handing their constitutional rights if they're ever stopped by any law enforcement, including immigration. But also different resources that we've developed, short videos in different languages, including the indigenous languages we have and serve here in the region, but also training for partners. As agencies, as a nonprofit that serves this vulnerable population, we've always had to create policies and protocols to protect our spaces when we're serving vulnerable populations. So throughout the years, we've developed a lot of different tools that we continue to shift every time there's situations like this. But what we have created is toolkits for partners and also trainings. How are we going to protect our safe spaces? And what does private spaces versus public spaces? Because as we all know, under this administration, they declared that there's no safe spaces, not even schools clinics or churches or any of our nonprofits that serve vulnerable populations. So we have been training not only school districts and schools, clinics, partners, and as in general that can reach out to us to provide them best practices that we have created so they could be ready, because as a community, we have to work together. We have to work together to make sure we're safeguarding the well-being and safety of our most vulnerable population, especially farm workers and immigrants that don't have access to immigration and are constantly in fear. So we have heard from our partners at the county and other service providers that a lot of community members have been opting out from Medi-Cal, especially with the expansion, canceling medical appointments because they fear of getting any type of benefit, but then also not attending different programming that's free for them. And in addition to all of that, the reality and struggle is very real. We want to share that we have a hotline that it's a phone number that it's only that we've had for many decades, and we only turn it on when there's emergencies that that relate to immigration situations in our region. So since election day, we have turned on our hotline, which is right now ran by volunteers 24/7. It's we're receiving calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And basically this hotline is called Reporta y Confirma. So I know all of you have heard of raids or immigration activity at different parts of the region. I could share with you as of today, we have not had large scale operation raids in the region to sweep up just anybody, how we saw in Kern County and Chicago, but we have continued to see what we have seen always: targeted operations that are targeting people with some type of criminal record. And that's been very constant, especially this week. We have seen an increase, a spike of these types of operations. Today, we received several, and they were confirmed that they were targeted with people that had some type of background. But what we have been with our Know Your Rights information, it's very crucial that it continues to hit the ground, because when community members are aware of their rights and the way that they could protect themselves and the way they're going to act if they come across these types of even targeted arrests, it's very important. Why? Because although immigration officials are going out to arrest people that may have some type of criminal background, if people do not follow procedure and are not putting themselves out there like running, they could stay safe because they're not giving the agents probable cause for them to be swept up. Because we have seen those situations where they're going to pick up someone, and a community just gets alerted and starts, getting panicky and starts running. And that's where we see situations that they're not just arresting the person in question, but then arresting innocent bystanders that don't have any criminal record, and they're just here working and, trying to survive. So that's the importance of the education and providing tools for community, but not just educating community, but like I said, partners. We do have a webinar coming up on March 6th at 1 o'clock. It's another webinar because of the high demand from organizations. This was geared to organizations, agencies, schools, church, anybody that does business and helps vulnerable population. It's tools that we are recommending and protocols for all of us to keep our spaces safe. So, I'll share this with Alejandro. So if any of you want to join, it's free education, and we'll provide tools afterwards. But it's right now what we have been doing is really hitting the ground, not only going to job sites, but door to door, having continuous Know Your Rights sessions throughout the region, just to make sure we're shielding this vulnerable population. But also what I want to say is our hotline has been really a lifesaver. Why? Because workers are calling it in the morning before they leave to work to see if there's any type of high level operations before they go to work. And for us, that's the intention of our hotline that we've had, because we know that if our workers are not working, they don't have money to eat, they don't have money to pay the rent, and they're struggling. And these types of situation of social media, when people are, instilling ill intent of operations that are not really happening, that creates fear and people stay home. We have 3 families in Coachella Valley that they have not left their house since election day. The kids haven't gone to school. We've been working very closely with them and other partners to provide resources, food, whatever they need in order for them to stay safe. We have high numbers of people that have packed their bags and have left, went back to their home countries because many of them have lost their jobs. We see an increase of fear within our companies, especially companies more like in the logistics spaces and other spaces that have been laying off workers because of the fear of I-9 audits. We have heard from partners across in the East Coast that they have already gotten these I-9 audits. So this is something that's been promised through the campaign, and it continues to come up. So this is the reality of our community. They're being laid off and they don't have access to unemployment benefits. The only thing they rely on is good partners, like our food banks, our Galilee centers, and all of us that are working together to provide resources for this community. So the fear is at its highest, especially with some social media activity of an arrest that happened yesterday, where we have had like high number of calls of people spreading rumors that there's operations happening in the Coachella Valley. What we call operations is raids, and we don't have raids happening. Up to tonight, up to this hour, we don't have anything. We actually have people patrolling our valley to see if there's any activity going on. We have documented, again, targeted arrests, but nothing at high level that we could say there's high, like operations have like other states have been experiencing. But through our hotline, people call in and report activity. What we have done with partners, we actually had another training yesterday in Coachella, at the Coachella Library, where we trained dozens of partners, volunteers from other organizations, so they could be first responders. And the way it works is we've trained over 600 volunteers in the region. So we have people all over the region. So when there's a call saying, I heard, or I saw, or I think there's an operation in this location, we're able to reach out to the partners that are in that area, and they go and document, and they get back to us. They get back to our operators and let them know if there is an operation. I could tell you 99.9% have been false alarms or smog checks or emission checks. There hasn't been any high level operations, but what there has been is targeted arrests, how I just mentioned. So with that said, it's, I know Alejandro and Sergio came out to one of our sessions where a lot of our partners, a lot of our CBOs have been attending, and this is what we're doing in Coachella Valley, together with a lot of our nonprofits that we're servicing this population. We've been coming together to strategize and bring our resources that we all have to continue to support this population and get ready for the worst, hoping it doesn't come to a point that we see the raids that we've been seeing in other parts of the country, and that really sweeping up with major operation raids, community that's just here to work and provide food for their family. So this is the reality we have here, where we are seeing workers that we're seeing, they're not working their full hours. There's a lot of food insecurity. There's so much need right now, but at the end of the day, we do see a community that's resilient, that they're empowered with their education, and they're coming to us after we had situations. Every day we get stories from community. We have workers that came into our office and told our staff, I come for more red cards because I got stopped by Border Patrol, and I told them I know my rights. I stood quiet and I gave them my red card and they let me go. So we know what we're doing is working, but it takes a village. It really takes a village of all of us coming together and supporting each other, because this is a volunteer-led effort, but it's up to us to respond when there's these types of situations that's hurting our most vulnerable population, especially here in the Coachella Valley, especially our farm worker community that, at this time, many of them, they're struggling economically, they're struggling, and the pandemic is over and they still can't catch up. So the struggle is very real, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak and share. I mean, I could share so much more, but I think this is a very high level overview of what's happening, but we're very grateful for Desert Healthcare for always showing up, your staff, and showing up to these spaces and being part of these conversations. And we're trying to find solutions to the problems that are hitting us, because resources are limited, but we have human bodies that we're all doing everything that we can to provide assistance and support and hope for our vulnerable populations here in the Coachella Valley and Blythe as well. So I don't know if any of you have any questions, but I will share the webinar that's coming up, and if you're welcome to share it with other partners. We have a lot of registrations that have come in, and we've been doing these trainings because for us, it's about not just protecting our community, but also helping our partners survive, because we all serve our population. So we have to come together and support each other with the different resources or best practices that we have implemented in our own agencies.
There you go. Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Has there been any meaningful out-migration of population, or is it a one-off sort of situation of people being targeted because of their backgrounds?
Yes, there has been operations, and they've been targeted arrests. So people that had some type of situation, but we've had some situations where they're arresting one person, and the people they either live with or they work with or they're carpooling with get nervous, and they give probable cause, and they don't know how to protect themselves, and they get caught up into the system, and then
Are people leaving the community?
Yes, we have families that have packed up and left because they said, what am I going to do? I don't have a job anymore. They've laid off. They don't have access to unemployment benefits. So they don't want to, hearing what's coming out of the White House and all the different messaging that continues to criminalize community. People are packing. We have families that have packed up and left, and we have families that had reached out to us to provide them resources so they could actually move back. One more thing I do want to add is that in TODEC, we have activated our emergency fund that we always activate, and you all know it, we activated during COVID, our Unidos Venceremos. So we have been fundraising to have this money available so we could support these types of situations when people need money to reunite with family that was detained, or for people that are detained that our legal teams have been able to get them released under bonds, because our community is not thinking of saving money or they're thinking of survival. So this fund will bring cash aid or bond money or traveling expenses, food for people that are detained. So we learned from Trump 1.0 that, when we activated the fund, a lot of the money went to help with bonds. When people actually listened and they followed their constitutional rights, stayed quiet and saw a judge, they were released under a bond. And with this money, we were able to pay that bond and help them fight their case outside of detention. So, and then we're also seeing migration to our state from other states. We've been collecting data on other workers that are migrating from other states like Washington and other states, Utah, that have come and lived in our region because of California, being a sanctuary state and feeling that California does care about immigrants. So we have seen migration coming in, but we have seen families leaving back to their home country.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Logsdon, did you have a question?
A comment and then just two questions. Thank you for your presentation. At least at the hospital level now, we're still continuing to treat that vulnerable population, if you will, just today alone. So you can inform them that there's still access to care without any limitations or questions. So we're still doing that. Question on the arrests that you've seen at your organization. Have there been any arrests done without criminal records yet that you know of? Has that been reported?
Yes, so the people that have been arrested, there is some of the criminal record is as low as a DUI from 20 years
Sure.
ago. So we are seeing the Rick and Raggedy, some of the executive orders and policies that this administration, has implemented. It's things like things that you wouldn't think would be deportable or criminalized. We're seeing community being criminalized more than ever. So there are harder, more difficult cases that deal with drugs or domestic violence or some other types of situations. But we have seen some cases that are just, even warrants for arrest of, that people think they forget about, and they turns into a warrant and it catch up to them. So that's why for us as educators and organizers, we are telling community, know your rights, and we go through our constitutional rights, but we also tell community, we have rights, but we also have obligations. If we get a ticket, we need to pay it. We're informing community not to expose themselves. If do not drink and drive, make sure who you even live with. If there's any criminal activity there, because it could be guilty by association, because a lot to the point that right now they're looking at tattoos that you wouldn't think that would be connected to a criminal gangs or drug cartels are being connected. So we're informing community, be careful. If you're already vulnerable, don't expose yourself and put yourself out there and being connected to these types of operations, because we are seeing our community the criminalization of our community to that point. So this, it's a totally different reality, and I could share with you every day new policy drops. Things change every day. So for us, we need to be paying attention what's happening at the federal government, at the federal level. So when we're doing our community education on the daily, we have the most up-to-date information as we're informing community, because things are shifting on the daily. So that's something that's been very constant. It's been a month since this administration has come into power, but it really feels like it's already 4 years, because literally it's been that heavy. Our teams have been working 7 days a week to be out in community educating and doing everything that we can to meet demand. And it's all, majority volunteers, but we're using our privilege that we have in immigration status to help those that don't have the same opportunity that we do. So that's what I could share. And we have been telling community, especially with the Medi-Cal expansion, for them not to opt out. But we are hearing from our county partners that there's community that is calling them for them to, they want to opt out, and they want to make sure that their information is not being connected with immigration, which it's not. But it's that level of fear. We're hearing from our county partners in the clinics as well. And I know Desert Healthcare District has also been part of those conversations. People are canceling their appointments because of this fear. So it's very layered fear. And at the same time, many people question why. But for us, we cannot judge community for doing what they need to do to feel safe. So it's a very vulnerable situations when there's continuous messaging coming from the White House that's really criminalizing and this community and threatening of mass deportation. So I do tell community, please do not share information that's not verified, because that's causing more fear. We have to confirm if there's any type of immigration activity before we even put it out. Thank God, in our region, we haven't had a high level operation like a raid. Like I mentioned again, we have had targeted arrests, but no high level raids where they're just coming and sweeping people up. How many of you and us have seen in the news?
Thank you. Did you have another question?
Just a couple Number of people impacted to date, can you cite that roughly, a rough estimate
Uh,
in our community?
I could follow up with that data. I could ask our team to pull some data. But I could tell you right now, every day, we're fielding from 70 to 100 calls a day on our hotline. So
Yeah,
that tells you, that gives you some type of number. But most of it is false alarms, you know, of immigration activity. One thing that's very constant in the Valley, it's the emission checks points that we've been having on the West End and the East End, that people are confusing that to immigration because it's unmarked cars, but it's actually surveying of the state that, you know, something to do with smog or emission checks. And we, when we started getting these calls, I reached out to the state and said, you know, what's going on? And they shared that they're doing these emission evaluations or surveys throughout the state. So I mentioned, you know, what was happening. So what they did is they actually, within their website, they posted all these emission checks. So now we cross-reference when we get these calls, and we're also getting the word out to community. You know, these are not, you know, immigration stops. If you want to check before you leave your home, you could see if there's going to be this type of operation in your area. Like earlier, in the month of February, we were getting a lot of them from Cathedral City, Palm Desert, Indio, that there was immigration stops. And when our teams went out there, it was the emission checks. So, and then we also have smog checks and of course DUI checks, you know. So I know a lot of the cities in the Coachella Valley they post the DUI checks. So that's something that community, you know, as it is, we shouldn't be drinking and driving, no one, and we tell community, but then just not for them not to confuse one thing to one operation to another. So then, you know, that's other information also that I could share with you all.
And last question, is there any of your funds being directed towards immigration support services outside of, you know, notifying? Are there the resources out there to help with attaining of proper green card citizenship for these members in this community? Is there, I mean, do you know? I don't.
Yeah, so that's affirmative action. So within our normal operations, that's something that we do at TODEC. So we provide, it's called, in Spanish, it's diagnóstico migratorio. It's an immigration screening, basically a legal consultation, but we call it screening because we evaluate within our current legal policies if there's anything in immigration law that a community member may potentially qualify, so that way they could get some type of relief. Unfortunately, you know, these types of opportunities haven't changed since the 80s. The last piece of legislation that, you know, we were able to help millions of undocumented farm workers and immigrants was the amnesty of which IRCA of the 80s that was signed by Ronald Reagan. So that was the last time there was an actual legal pathway for undocumented immigrants. Right now, there's affirmative action reliefs like family petitions if, you know, US citizens or military or victims of crime or you know, different types of reliefs, but not our community that has been living for decades. You know, unfortunately, there's not a legal pathway right now, you know, and there hasn't been in the last legal pathway we had for people that have lived here for so many years was the amnesty of the 80s. Since then, we haven't had one. Right now, we continue to have the same immigration reliefs that we've had. So a lot of the majority of our community that locally that come to us to get a screening, they don't qualify, but they walk away knowing that they don't qualify for anything currently, and they walk away with their rights. Although you don't have a protection, but let's get ready, you know, helping them make their family plans. And if they have kids under the age of 18, helping them get their caregiver affidavit. And this has been crucial because what we help with is not only the screening, but then also getting their paperwork ready in case they get detained. So they can have everything, they have everything ready to fight, you know, if they get caught up and, you know, they have the opportunity to see a judge. So we've been helping with community to get them prepared with their family plans and legal documents, because one of the policies that this administration expanded was the expedited removal, which really impacted Coachella Valley because we are a border region. So previously, Expedited removal was only for communities that were 100 border regions like Coachella, 100 miles from the border, and for people that were here less than 14 days. So people that were here less than 14 days within our border regions, they didn't have access to see a judge or dual process. They would just get deported. What this administration has done, they expanded expedited removal to now it's not just border regions, it's anywhere in the country, and it's for people that have lived here less than 2 years. So if they can't prove that they lived here for 2 years or more, they get removed automatically. They get picked up and removed. They don't even have access to see a judge. So part of our work has been to provide to see if there's anything within current law that a community member qualifies. And if they do, we move on with that process. But if they don't, we're informing them of their rights and we're helping them get their family plans in place in case something happens that they get detained. Their family knows where all the documents are and what the action steps are going to be for their legal defense. And so that's what we do on the daily, you know, and now more than ever because of the whole fear of, you know, of the constant changes within policy with this new administration. But yes, and we also have our staff attorneys and legal teams that are, you know, are providing this type of legal support. But then also we're informing community to be aware of immigration fraud because we have had community bring some flyers of so-called businesses promising that there's immigration relief for under Trump and trying to charge them anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, which is fake. It's fraud. So at the same time, these screenings really help community to see where they stand so they don't fall into these types of immigration scams as well.
Are there any more questions? I had one more question, please. Do you know if our growers have been impacted? Is there an effect on the production of crops in our valley?
I know with the growers, when there's not workers, of course they get impacted, but I know they've been doing like different strategies as far as harvesting times and the volume of workers they're hiring. But we know for a fact that if we don't have a strong workforce, immigrant workforce that's actually working in the fields, everybody's bottom line is going to get hit. We're already hearing it from community, from small businesses that they're, you know, people are being very careful as far as how they spend money, you know, because it's uncertain times, right? And if we don't have a strong workforce, we're not going to have a strong economy, especially around agriculture.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I just have a comment. I just want to say thank you, Luz, for your efforts and for TODEC's efforts to help our immigrant population and for partnering with other organizations to really reach out and to educate as much as the work that you're doing. I think this is important for us to hear today because this is our community. This is our community that is impacted. And we need to know that as we are funding, as we are doing our work, that our focus is on healthcare of every person. And we are, you know, there's only certain things that we can do, but within our mission, it's our responsibility to understand our community's needs to better serve our community. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I just want to add one more thing, and I appreciate, but it's a team effort, right? It takes all of us and all the great work that many organizations are also, like, we're all coming together under Coachella Valley Resiste. But also one thing that I do want to highlight is the mental health of our community. It's at its highest. There's so much trauma. And we've had a couple of farm workers that committed suicide. I know they haven't been newscasted or anything like that because we're just respecting the community's, you know, the families, what the family has told us. But the struggle is real. You know, when our men and women that are used to working and are used to providing and they don't have any safety net, they go into trauma, and our community doesn't know how mental health feels and how depression hurts. So it's undetectable unless they go to a professional. But at the same time, it's a lot of cultural, right? That they will actually want to see a doctor, that they actually want to sit down with a psychologist in a private setting that nobody knows their information. So, you know, I do want to advocate for professional services for mental health, because that's where it is. We're seeing it with our kids, you know, working so closely with our school districts here in the Valley and beyond. Our kids, you know, mental health is hit, you know, it's hit, and it just breaks our hearts because we see these stories every day with the work that we're doing. And as a mother, it just hurts so much to see a child telling me that that he's scared to go to school and he doesn't want their parents to go to work because they don't want to get deported. And this is a US born child that the only thing that they fear is losing their parents. So the struggle is real, and the well-being of our community is not just, you know, it's not only their pockets at this point, it's their mental health. But most importantly, what's hitting them is their jobs, because they just want to work. And that's something that, you know, that they continue to elevate. And I'll share with Alejandro, we released the first ever research project from from our workforce here in the Valley, but it's the way we collected data is very different to other research projects that really highlights the inequities that we have, you know, and it gives light to a lot of the health conditions, inequities that we have, but not only within health, but every single touch point. We collected over 1,500 realities through this project, and I'll share the project. But this helped us with our supervisor, Manuel Perez, that we're so proud of, our Coachella Valley representative that listened to us and listened to the community. And right after elections, right, we were elevating the voices, because for us as an organization is to elevate the struggle of community, to create systems change, so we could have systems that address the needs of our community. And through all these stories and sharing, you know, we as a county, we passed the first, you know, one of the first resolutions in the in this part of the region, in the Inland Empire, that supports immigrants, but there's action items attached to it. And this just happened in the last weeks. But you know, we have to do whatever we need to do within our spaces of power, whatever power that we hold, to address the needs and inequities of this population. Because for us, including you all, it's about the human beings, right? And the dignity. But for others, it's their bottom line. But trust me, if we don't have a strong immigrant workforce in the state, the state's bottom line is going to get hit, and everybody's businesses are going to get hit. We're going to continue to see goods going up and services going up. So we need to continue working together to address the inequities of this population. And very grateful for also Chris, our president of the board, or executive director. He's come out to these sessions, right, talking to the women and creating systems and putting out resources like the women's health clinic that we had in collaboration with the district. And it came from the grassroots, right? We're addressing the needs, but right now it's a different reality that we're shifting gears every day. Every day we're shifting gears, and it's power of the people, because we don't have deep pockets, but we have a lot of volunteers and good partners that we're doing everything that we can to keep communities safe.
Thank you so much. Any other comments, please? Well, I'm hopeful that maybe we as a board could come together with a statement of support for the work that TODEC does, and post it on our website so that we're visible in that. Are there any other community comments?
I'd like to make a comment. We've worked with the REC and with many different, through the years, we've worked with them. But we also wanted to let the REC know that we appreciate all the work that they do and the partnership they have with Galilee Center, and also to let your community know that the Galilee Center did change our distribution for our community back to in-house. We are no longer doing drive-through, and we're no longer out in the public road. We are now giving out our distribution behind our gates so that we are able to protect our community better as well. So I wanted to let TODEC know and our community know, and that we're here with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Galilee. I know, see, we're all shifting. We're all doing what we need to do to keep our community safe. And that's something that Galilee always does, and all our partners, because it's not just one person, it's all of us. And we all have stake in it because we come from these communities. So it's personal. So I appreciate the Desert Healthcare District for always being there for our community and stepping up when there's needs to step up. And there's a lot of history on that. So I appreciate all of you, and I'll make sure staff drops a box of red cards at your center as well. So in case communities coming through, it's just important to have these resources, because red cards are really, it's making their, communities, life very, it's a prevention tool. And we've seen how it's really working, especially here in our valley and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Moving on to strategic grant funding. So let staff discuss both the two grants. The first one, grant 1468, Regents of University of California, Riverside.
This was brought forward in front of program committee. Program committee has moved approval to the board to support this grant request of $500,000, which would, for 2 years, which would be expanding behavioral and mental health services in the Coachella Valley. Mainly supporting 5 key staffing positions. If you've looked at your staff report, supervising facility, faculty, Spanish-speaking clinicians, staff responsible for community outreach and psychoeducational training to raise awareness. And of course, they do align with our goal of improving access to mental health care, particularly for underserved population. And Dr. Lakes is here if anybody has any questions with, she's a professor of clinical psychiatry at UCR.
Thank you. Are there any board comments? Go ahead.
I have a procedural question, nothing to do with the substance of the grant. At what point do grants of this order of magnitude come to the finance committee?
They never have.
Or do they come to the finance committee? Should they come to the finance committee?
I think that's why we have the program committee, because from the finance side of it, we look at it as it comes through our budget, because we do have the $5 million budget in our annual complete budget. So
You're saying it's getting reviewed, but it's getting reviewed in a different
committee.
Location.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's still 3 of our board members that are vetting each of the grants through the program committee. And they're looking at all the details of, all of the staff work is done through the due diligence process. And so they're going through that.
Thank you.
And then at the board level, then, if you have any questions, then you're, free to ask.
Thank you. That addresses my question. Thank you.
And just to further, with our grants team, we do have the finance department that also looks at all of the audited financial statements, the P&Ls and everything else that's related to the grantee organization to make sure that everything is within order.
I appreciate the answers. Thank you very much.
No, it's not. That's it.
Oh. Okay, we need to get public comments next. Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Okay. I have a motion. May I have a second?
Second. I'm sorry, excuse me, who motioned?
Director Peraza, seconded by Director Fresco. Roll call, please.
Director Fresco?
Yes.
Director Shore?
Yes.
Director Delara?
Yes.
Director Logston?
Yes.
Secretary Baraza?
Yes.
Vice President Rodriguez? And President Rogers?
Yes. Okay, number 2, St. John's Community Health. Community Health Center startup for $1 million for 1-year periods.
Once again, this was brought forward to the program committee. The program committee rated the application as moved approval to the board, recommending approval. St. John's Community Health is an FQHC that has opened up its doors in Indio with a 3-prong. They have dental, mental health, behavioral health, and primary care. And this would be in support of staffing for the clinic's ramp-up phase. And we do have the CEO, Jim Manja, with us, President CEO Ernesto Corona and Tina Christopoulos. If anybody has any additional questions or thoughts or comments.
Are there comments, Director Delara?
Thank you, President Rogers. Okay, so I was able to attend the ribbon cutting event that was held for this facility, and it's very impressive. I'm really pleased to see another organization coming into our community to serve our residents. I believe that there's a tremendous need for all healthcare providers to do their part. However, I do have concerns about this organization coming in and the expectation that other FQHCs in our community that do work collaboratively together, BAP, Intercare, SAC Health, I think there's another FQHC, but I just want to make sure that this organization also has that mindset to collaborate with our other organizations to work in partnership because there is tremendous need, like I said, and I don't want there to be a point that they are not taking into account the other organizations' efforts to provide services where it then becomes detrimental to the organizations being able to provide the care, the long-term planning that they need to do. So as you know, when we had a request for funding from DAP Health a few years ago, there was a lot of questions about why are we funding you for these services that you're going to get reimbursed for? And so I think that that's what I was looking at when I was looking at this application, is that they said that they're going to be reimbursed for some services in the future. So I would hope that that would be the expectation, that this $1 million, that it really is for startup, that it will be, that there is sustainability there for them, because we don't usually get requests for funding from DAP Health or Intercare unless there are extenuating circumstances. We don't know what's going to happen in a year from now with the federal government being what they're doing. But if there is funding, I would expect them to go after it, get it, so that they can utilize that funding instead of our funding where it could go further. So my question to the CEO and president is, do they have local members of the community serving on their board? I think that question was asked before, and I don't remember the answer. So I didn't do any background check to see, what the situation is. But I want to ensure that there is community part of their mission, because I know that they're focused on LA and I know that they're very successful. And I just want to make sure that we have representation from our community on their board, either now or in the future. So let's see.
Could Jim,
Yeah, if you could address that.
address that question first?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I wanted to address that question as well as some of the comments that you made. The reason that we decided to come into the Inland Empire, in particular to Indio, was because every year the Health Resources and Services Administration issues a report on the access to healthcare for low-income residents of a particular community, zip code, or city. And Indio has one of the lowest FQHC, federally qualified health center penetration rates in the state of California. So that means that less than 35% of residents of Indio have access to primary care. And so it was based on this that St. John's made the decision to come into Indio, and we purchased a building significantly away from where all of the other FQHCs are located, so that we would not be directly competing with them. We've met with all the local FQHCs. We're partnering with many local community-based organizations. We're going to be hosting a residency program to train physicians in Indio at our site with Desert Physicians Medical Group. So I agree with you completely that St. John's has to build these kinds of relationships. and partner with the organizations that have been here in the Coachella Valley. And we will continue to do that and expand that. From the vantage point of representative on our board, yes, we are interviewing representatives from the Coachella Valley to sit on our board. As you know, federally qualified health centers require more than 50% of our board members to be consumers. And so we've already seen at our San Bernardino site, we've seen close to 12,000 patients. In India, we're seeing about, in just the last 4 weeks, we're seeing about 50 to 60 patients a week, and that's increasing every single week. So we have a significant pool of patients already of several hundred that we, have reached out to, and 3 have expressed interest that we're currently working with. So yes, we will, within the next 30 days, have a consumer board member from Indio.
Thank you.
Sir, what is your proposed annual budget, assuming you are fully operational?
At the Indio location alone,
Yes.
we expect that we will see about 30,000 patients, and our annual budget there will probably be about $6 or $7 million.
The reason I asked the question is if for those of my colleagues who remember my opposition to us donating money to the startup of the DAP transition to acquire, their operating budget, as I remember the representative talking, was $59 million a year, their budget. And I was concerned that we were giving an organization with an operating budget of $59 million, $1 million of our money with no requirement for repayment. So I wonder if an organization as substantial as St. John's, and I know it from my days in Los Angeles, whether or not some degree of repayment or some dynamic relative to repayment ought to be considered to facilitate your transition and opening of a clinic in Indio for all the solid reasons that you're doing that. So I challenge my colleagues on the board to wonder and debate this question about whether or not we should require some repayment, but I see my colleagues and CEO responsive, so please educate me.
I think one of the things that we need to consider here, and Jim, if you might expand on this, and this was part of the communication that we received, with our new administration, that there's a significant amount of federal funding that St. John's would have received that they're not going to receive. And so that was part of the consideration in this grant. So, I think that's something that we should keep in mind when we're talking about should there be a repayment of this proposed grant, should it be awarded.
I have I have a question for Jeff. Is it my understanding that districts cannot give loans as grants, that they have to be grants?
Yeah, generally that's the case. We had this issue a few years ago when California was having trouble passing a budget. And so we had a lot of community groups coming in and asking for a loan. And when we looked at it at that time, under the Constitution, we're not a bank. So we're really not in general, but I'd have to see what the specific request was to give you a more, precise opinion. But in general, that's the case. We're not a bank. We don't loan money in general.
Thank you. Dr. Logsdon, did you have a comment?
Just a couple of comments. Comparing this to our ability to deliver care in our mobile units, if you're seeing 30,000 patients for about $6 million, that's $200 a visit, just to give everybody here an idea of how well the mobile clinics deliver very similar care. Right? You're talking $43 to $64 with meds out the door at our mobile clinic. So the investment in our community, especially in Indio, having a physical place to be there every day, I think is important. And so I think to Arthur's point, I think initial startup costs of any business There's always an investment that comes in that's not necessarily a loan, if you will. So I think this is a startup cost. I think my concern is that a significant portion, about 80% is going to fund FTEs or portions of FTEs, so employees. And so I guess my question to you, Jim, is how do you see sustainability of those positions that are going to be critical to deliver care next year? How is that going to be funded?
So, couple of thoughts about your statement and your questions. So we operate 5 mobile clinics. We have mobiles that serve people experiencing homelessness. We have 2 partnerships, one with the San Bernardino Unified School District and the Los Angeles Unified School District, where we have mobiles that provide care to those communities. We have a mobile that provides immigrant health care with the kinds of raids and the fear that we're seeing. We're doing doctor home visits for our immigrant patients, which we will be doing in Indio as well. The difference between mobile clinics and standalone clinics is that the FQHC clinic itself provides a broad range of services, right? So mobile clinics either provide dental or provide medical or provide behavioral health, but none of them can do all that together given the size of the mobile units. So the care in the mobile unit is much, much less expensive because you don't have this comprehensive set of services and care that are provided at a brick and mortar location. So St. John's provides all of these services as well as wraparound social services support. We refer people for housing, we have specialty care, we have residents rotating through. So all that adds to the cost. I think it's a very good question, obviously, the sustainability. And I think, the fact that the federal government is beginning to cut back on grants to federally qualified health centers, particularly for what they call DEI initiatives or trans gender affirming care initiatives. We've had about $4 million that have been cut for our Black maternal health program and our transgender health program. We're currently in court seeking to have that funding restored. There was an injunction, temporary injunction that restored some of the funding. So we feel confident, but it is a constant battle. And as you know, the Republicans voted today to cut $880 billion from Medicaid, from Medi-Cal. But from the vantage point of self-sustainability, which is the essence of your question, St. John's has been operating since 1964. And we've grown to now have 24 clinic sites, 5 mobiles, and we serve over 550,000 patient visits a year. And the sustainability is obtained through a set of insurance reimbursements, Medicaid reimbursements, state, local, and federal grant funding, and private donations and foundation support. The thing about startup is it's very expensive to start up. As you point out, most of the cost is in labor. It's in the employees that provide the service. And that's the biggest expense. It's 80% of our expenses in every single one of our health centers in our overall budget. When you're providing medical care, dental care, behavioral health, it's the people, it's that face-to-face interaction, which is the biggest cost and also the most effective intervention. So we have been successful at sustaining through expansion of Medicaid, Medi-Cal in our case, and our successful fundraising. So, we would be extremely grateful, obviously, for help with this startup, because the cost to start up a clinic before the patients start coming in is significant.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have one more comment.
Okay.
I would encourage you, Jim, to meet with Alejandro here and understand the breadth of the services that we are capable of delivering in a mobile unit. I would challenge you as well on your comments about the patients that come in. Are they getting psychiatric care, OBGYN care, and general wellness checks on the same visit? I would say no. And I would say our mobile clinics are also very focused on what's going to be served that day. Like coming to a regular clinic, you're not going to go see 4 doctors in one day typically. So I would just say, I think there's a lot of synergy around how we want to meet delivering care. I think you serve a need and a purpose here that I think aligns with our vision of the community support. So thank you for answering all those questions.
One more comment, Director Shaw.
I have not a philosophical, but again, a procedural issue. No different than the DAP proposal. This proposal is being looked at in isolation. It's being looked at as a standalone issue, and I've not heard anyone, either for the DAP proposal, which we all endorsed, which was endorsed, or this proposal that's asking the question, what other use can we do with $1 million?
That is my point.
What could we do, assuming this organization that's been in business since the 60s and has a multi-bazillion dollar functioning budget, as the DAP. And when I asked the question of DAP, that was, what if we don't approve this grant? The CEO answer was, we won't find a way to do it, which is the right answer. So I wonder if we have a defect in our procedural process as a general statement, nothing to do with this grant in particular, as to compare to what? Where else could this money be deployed? Should it go to Luz? Should it go to, different questions? And I think that we need to reincorporate that process in our planning process, whether it's in the committee, at the committee level, at the strategic planning level, but somewhere along the line, I think we need to modify the sophistication of our decision-making process to at least ask the question, what alternative use would this money serve if for whatever reason we chose to do so?
And staff has heard that. So did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd push back just a little bit. I'm hearing an assumption that program committee is not putting a fiduciary hat on when they're looking at grants.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
That the program committee is not putting a fiduciary hat on, that we're not looking at.
I think,
and that's the furthest thing from the case. Even before I served on the program committee, just attending, it's always about the discussion of money. It's about discussion of priorities, specifically in the last 3 years, how it fits in with the strategic plan. So to me, this process of grant making in this organization is one of the most tight processes I've ever experienced.
yeah, I'm not questioning the subjectivity of the request. I'm supportive of it. I'm looking at it more as an administrative decision-making process that's generic, that would apply to any and all allocations of money over a certain amount of money. $500,000 is a lot of money. $1 million is a lot of money. And if there's another need that needs to compete with that generically, we need to just incorporate that process into an otherwise well-functioning process. Thanks for the comment, though, Brett.
And if I could make a comment too with, in regards to the participation, I think, Dr. Tate Kim and the rest of their practice have been partnering with St. John's. One of the great things about our medical mobile clinics is that they're not a clinic where individuals get served on a daily basis and return. They're the entry point into the larger healthcare system. So now with Dr. Kim and DPMG Health team, now they actually have, a place where they practice in St. John's Community Health. But then now they're able to refer a lot of our East Valley residents, into the Indio facility. This last, actually yesterday, we had a enrollment fair for Desert Sands Unified School District where they required children to have their hearing test, their physical, some blood work, in order to transition from transitional kindergarten into kindergarten, enter the larger, school system and some of the things that were required by the California Department of Education. So we actually had a representative from, St. John's there on site, scheduling an appointment for the family so they could actually, get seen, because as we all know, pediatric appointments here in the Valley are very, very scarce, and you could wait up to 2 or 3 months just to see a pediatrician. So they are providing a very valuable, resource. And they're already partnering with a lot of our local infrastructure, and I think that's one of the things that I wanted to point out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Are there any, go ahead,
Oh,
Director Delora.
Can I make a motion? I know you're still gonna ask for public comment.
Yes.
Can I make a motion? Can I move approval with one
I
condition?
think we're supposed to.
Right, listen to all the public comments before you vote.
Motions.
I wasn't sure if we're doing
Okay.
it that way or if we're doing the motion and then letting somebody speak.
So just ensure that the.
Okay, very good. I will wait.
To
I
hear
will
all the public
hold off on my
comments.
move.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Is there
you.
Public comment.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, we do. So, Benina, she says the St. John's community health workers are here present. And just want to say thank you for allowing us to tune in and be a part to hear this great information. And we're out there every day doing our outreach to bring people in to get help in medical, dental, and behavioral health. And are waiting to help many more people in more services. We are waiting to open up. This is what Indio, the Coachella Valley needs, has been needing for a long time. Thank you all who have made this happen, and we can't wait to show in time how much we appreciate all who helped us in any way. They have been truly wanting to work with any partners to spread health and wellness. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Any others from?
None.
John?
Yes, like here behind
Yes, go ahead.
I was just gonna suggest that,
Yes.
Excuse me, please state your name.
I'm Carlos Garcia.
Hi.
Hi, I was a board chair of an FQHC in LA and, the LA Community Clinic. And, the way we handle the board of directors issue, and you have to have 51% of your board of directors be user members. So they're actual patients. Is we had a two-tiered system. We had the actual board that actually had votes. And then we had a board of governors that were community members who contributed in many various ways, professionally and monetarily, but they didn't have a vote. But they were still part of the community and were able to contribute, able to offer professional advice. We had lawyers and accountants and real estate people and all sorts of different people, different areas. So they weren't actually on the board of directors, but they were on the board of governors. So we still had a larger group that facilitated the organization as a whole, while still within the limits of the FQHC process and having 51% of the board members board of directors be user members.
Thank you. Good comment. Thank you.
I have a question just for
Go
clarity.
ahead. Yes.
Isn't, and I might have missed, maybe that was one of the edits. We have on our board conduct policy that after each agenda item has been motioned and seconded, that's when we open for public comment.
It's,
Yeah, that should be revised.
yeah, I
Was
think
that
it's
part of the
preferable
revised?
under, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so under the Brown Act, it really, the proper procedure is to have the staff report. You could, and then really open it up to public comment first, and then go to, so the board has an opportunity to hear the public and incorporate those comments. And then the board may have discussion, or you may have a motion and a second and open it up to discussion. But it's preferable to go ahead and under the Brown Act to have public comment before it gets to the board. So that gives you the opportunity to think about it.
It's just a
Hear it
little
first.
contradicting, especially since we just approved a revised version during our consent agenda. So I don't know if we need to go back and revise the revision.
To be
That we did,
consistent.
yeah.
To be consistent and make sure that we do it.
We can bring back a revision at a later.
Yeah, because it's 5.2 of that policy.
Madam President, I would move approval, but I would like to add that the expectation is that that St. John's would collaborate with other partners, and that includes FQHCs, and to collaborate and coordinate, especially the mobile clinic. So that would be one of the expectation, and that they would give us that information as to how they have done that in their reporting. With that, I would move approval.
Is there a second?
Looks like it.
Seconded by Director Barraza. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Perez Hill.
Yes.
Director Shore.
Yes.
Director Delara,
Yes.
Director Logston.
Yes.
Secretary Baraza,
Yes.
Vice President Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Rogers.
Yes. Thank you so much. Let's move on to report. Desert Regional Medical Center CEO report. I see that. You're not Mike.
You missed you already.
You all get to hear me for another month. As you'll note in some of your paperwork, Mike Totoro, who has been with the facility for about 9 years, has assumed the position of CEO of Desert Regional Medical Center. And then I have moved my focus as the CEO of the Desert Care Network. So I will be focusing much more on the development of the network and the future and those deliverables that we have in order to provide access to our communities, where Mike will be focusing more on Desert Regional and the day-to-day operations. Unfortunately, as I've heard a few of you, he is under the weather this evening. So I did tell him that I would go ahead and he needed to just go home, take NyQuil and try to rest up. So following his report, which I think you have on page 195, a couple of additions. You know, he did note for you that the facility Desert Regional underwent the sepsis certification survey. This is a Joint Commission specialty certification. Since the writing of this report, we have received our outcome and the outcome was favorable. So Desert Regional is now a Joint Commission certified specialty facility in sepsis. You know, last month I had mentioned to you that Desert Regional received the maternity bundle honor roll designation, and that is by the state of California. It's issued by HCI. And I would be pleased to tell you that JFK also received notification that they were successful and have been designated by the state as an honor roll member for the maternity bundles. And as I explained to you last time, there's 5 different categories that you have to have cell processes and outcome in order to accomplish that objective. On some of the events, I will just note for you that on the last event, you know, we are continuing to see some pretty high census levels. We actually, in the month of January, as an individual facility and as a network, saw record admissions as well as record ER visits. That's not necessarily a good thing. So I applaud the healthcare district for your efforts in taking in care of the community, because it is definitely needed. I think your hospital partners are feeling the weight of being that safety net provider. I will also, you know, echo what Director Dr. Logston had to say earlier, and that is we are a safe place in hospitals. We do not do any kind of disclosures or different treatment because of someone's immigrant status. We don't even ask about it. We will continue to work with qualifying people for programs for which they are entitled, and we will continue to take care of individuals. There was some community outreach, and I may reach out. There is a process in most facilities, and we do follow it in the Desert Care Network, where any individual who presents to the facility is informed of their privacy rights. And as part of that, they can check one little box that says, I opt out of disclosure of any information regarding my presence here. And that takes them off of every single list. And so even if someone called and said, you know, hey, is patient Mary Jane in your facility, and we would not disclose that information. Whereas normally if a patient doesn't opt out, if someone calls and says, I want to come visit Mary Jane, they have knowledge that they're there, we would acknowledge that they were there and what visiting hours are. So there is that extra layer of protection that can be afforded to individuals. And then the items that Mike has included for you on the capital and construction are all items that I have previously noted for you. So I thought I might spend a few minutes because I know that there is interest in what's going on at JFK as well. And so there's a couple of projects at JFK that are getting ready to conclude. We've been installing a new MRI at JFK. That MRI is on track for an expected occupancy of April 7th, when we'll start doing applications and take that new unit live. We also have a scope of work going in our sterile processing department at JFK, which is the replacement of sterile equipment washers and sterilizers. And that is scheduled to be completed April 15th. JFK has been approved and is in the process of replacing one of their X-ray rooms. And that, by the time we work through the architectural and the HCI reviews, should be complete by the end of the year. We have upgraded one of the ORs at JFK, and we are working on upgrading the second OR, which is due to be completed at the end of June. And we also, similar to Desert, have a elevator replacement refurbishment initiative going on. And so that first elevator will be done also in June. And I made a commitment to Letty to talk a little bit about the GME programs. And yes, we are working on the ER at JFK as well as these other projects. That's a little bit more comprehensive of a project. So it will not be completed this year. So on the GME front, we saw a number of applicants for the 5 programs that are currently offered at Desert Regional. And combing through all of the applications, the program directors and program staff selected 512 individuals for interview for the 39 spots we have available. Those interviews are being completed, and then we'll go in and do the ranking on the match process. And we are in March match is coming up very soon, so we should know who we're matching with shortly thereafter. And we are starting the internal medicine program, to remind you. That is the new program, and that program does start in June. The first batch. And with that.
How many people are you expecting for that?
For what?
For the new internal
The
medicine?
new, it's a 7. It's either a 6, 6, and 6 or an 8, 8.
It's 6, 6, and 6.
6, 6, and 6.
66?
Yeah, 6, 6, and 6 program. 6 per year.
Madam President, I have a question.
As a former hospital administrator, how do I communicate my condolences to Mike?
He'll be here next month, because I'm going to assume that, Michael will work and he'll get a couple good nights rest and we sure are seeing a lot of cold and flu, not much COVID and not much RSV.
I have a question and a comment. One question is, have we seen anything of the measles?
We have not.
Okay.
We have not. And thus far, we have not necessarily seen cancellations of appointments. And certainly the volume that we're seeing through the emergency room admitted to the hospital thus far doesn't really indicate a propensity not to seek.
Correct.
Not to seek. And I don't know if
100%.
you're,
We're seeing
but the numbers are.
every day.
The numbers are high. Yes. But again, I think we do try to communicate pretty readily that, we have a lot of policies and protections in place.
My comment is, thank you so much for starting to do your evaluation. And this is good to be able to assess what are the needs, because as we start looking at next year's budget, like in April, May, then we could see if there's a need to make any changes there. So thank you so much.
Well, and I picked up some tips from the presentation, because I'm going to go back and check our numbers and see if they're seeing any kind of experience with individuals saying, no, I don't want to. I don't want to submit the application or withdraw the application. And that's a question I would not have thought to ask, but I have been educated, so I'm going to ask it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
I have a
you.
question for you, Michelle.
Yes.
Actually, 2 questions. I know that you've answered this one before, but when you interview for Matched, how do you make a consideration to attract physicians that might stay in the community? How is that?
The program directors do try to assess that, because obviously that's part of what we're all looking to do, is to build for the community, but I would say it's more about when the individual is in the program, working with them to encourage that they stay in the community and to offer some incentives that would allow them to be successful in the community that I think really overrides that initial. But because it's a match program, we can't necessarily limit the match to individuals who might have been, who might have already have ties in the community.
I'll comment on that. I mean, they can't really ask a lot of those personal
I'm sorry.
questions. Sorry, they can't, in the interview process, they can't ask some of the personal questions that you would like to know when you get to know somebody. Are you married? Do you have kids? Are you expecting to have kids? They can't ask any of that. But I would say, like, if one of our goals is to retain physicians that come out here, which I think it is, part of it is about when they are here, making them feel welcome and helping them create a home. Because if that resident creates a home here, brings their family here, and they see a future here, that's what keeps them. You don't know when they hit the door, when they interview, what their life's going to unfold. But as you come and you get to know them, so if the board has a plan and wants to discuss that, we can talk about how do you integrate these residents into the community so they feel a part of it. And then once they feel that, they're not going to leave. So.
And there's a lot of things that you can do within the facility, within your wellness programs, within your outreach programs that can help make individuals feel very, very close and very tied to the community.
And we've had a discussion about the physician shortage that we have in the valley, pediatricians, OBGYN, primary care. And, we'll point to our long-term studies with our consultants in terms of how the district might work with the tenant in facilitating how we might acquire, keep, maintain physicians' specialties that we're in dire need of. Are there any more questions, comments? Comments from the public?
None. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
Bad baby.
Yeah, cameo.
I'll give you some network updates.
The network job.
Next on the agenda is governing board report. Greg?
So it's in the packet on page 196, 197. Primarily, most of it was Mike coming and recap the 2024 operations, the admits, and then the quality metrics. So,
you. Any comments, questions for Greg? Director Rodriguez? Hearing none from the public. We'll move on to Desert Healthcare District CEO report.
Okay, the first item there is with regard to a spot bill to develop a feasibility study to allow for freestanding emergency departments in California. Is that something that you wanted to address?
Let me begin by saying that I gave you, I think it's the same handout that I had to you last month. And the reason for that we had to act on it quickly is because February 21st is the deadline to submit bills to the legislature. So we had to move on it, and that what you have in hand is what I submitted on behalf of you after obtaining last month your endorsement to move ahead with it. And since then, Chris has received several emails from our lobbyists. And would you like to go over those, Chris?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So there has been submitted, and the language was submitted in error from the senator, pronouncing the name wrong, probably Ochoa Vogue, that was supposed to be regarding the actual feasibility study, but it got submitted as the pilot program for the freestanding emergency departments. So there will need to be an edit to that because the intent was to, since there is so much concern about, and it's been presented in the past and it has not been successful in passing through the legislature, the desire was to do a feasibility study that would provide better information overall for the support of doing these FEDs. And so what was intended then to be the spot bill that was submitted then on Friday for the deadline. The timeframe for it is roughly about a month, and there's I think March 17th is the date that further updates of the language needs to be completed March 17th, and then ultimately March 26th, the final language. So our lobbyist is working with Senator Ochoa Bogue's office, as well as they'll be communicating with the Democratic Senator Padilla's office to gain some bipartisan support. And also we'll be developing, some partnerships, some sponsors, some letters of support that would go along with that as well. And so they are working on language that then they would communicate with us that would be ultimately proposed to Ledge Council and would be going forward for
So this
consideration.
it might go back to being a legislation for a pilot project if we can get Senator Padilla's support.
If they continue to propose it that way, but the communication that our lobbyist had received during the meeting that they had with the senator was that they did not feel comfortable in supporting the pilot program. So as of today, understanding that that's the language that got submitted, the lobbyist is going back to the senator's office and confirming if that's actually how they wanted to submit it. If not, then there will need to be.
So she may have changed her mind and back.
May have, but it was not communicated.
That would be great. Sent Director Barraza and then Director Short.
Senator one day would be fine too. It's not uncommon that bills will be put in, it's like mentioned a spot bill, it's just like a hold placer, it's just basically holding it in place. It could be then amended during committee and as it moves along, and even after we come up or they do decide to move it forward with the final language, it could be that committee recommends amendments, so we might see changes if they do move it along, just
Great.
info.
Okay, Senator.
Just one thought. In reading the proposal as it's submitted, to me, there's a glaring error in the failure to include performance outcome analysis to answer the question, what is the impact of this? Should this be a pilot, whether it's a pilot program or a feasibility study? I would hope that there would be a comprehensive report that answers the question. And this is why it's important. This is how it will impact the delivery of care. This is how it will change waiting times of 12 hours in emergency departments. This is how it will deliver care that can be cost effective in a slightly different environment. So whatever the necessary language is, I'm not suggesting the language to you. I'm suggesting that the concept of that kind of language be incorporated into whatever modification can be made at this time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the type of language that we would expect to see as it develops.
Okay, thank you.
And proceeds. Right now, it's just, language that's just thrown in there
just to get
a spot.
Just to get over working. I understand. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? So.
I just, if I could.
Go ahead.
If I could. Yeah, just, the legislative process is like watching sausage get made. And this could have as you pointed out, Carol, the deadline was Friday. And sometimes, this probably looks like the bill that didn't make it the last time around. So you just put something, that's why they call it a spot bill. Something as was explained, it's a placeholder And that way they can, massage it as we go along, but they had to meet that deadline. So this may have just simply been a strategic move, and we'll see when it shakes out. As Chris has explained, I'm sure there'll be some amendments, but it's fantastic that you were able to get something there for a holding pattern, a placeholder rather.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any comments from the public? Okay, moving on. The Legislative Policy Committee.
So during one of our recent board officer meetings to look at the agenda approval, Director Barraza had suggested that we incorporate a new committee that would be related to legislation. And so it was discussed that and asked if Director Barraza would like to head that committee. And so we wanted to bring it to the board to ask if this is a new committee that would be acceptable to add to our list of committees, and it would work closely with our lobbyists. We would conduct the monthly meeting as part of one of the meetings that I have with the lobbyist each month. So they'd be very engaged with any legislative activities that are going on and be able to report back right to the board. So just looking for board support on that, and then we would add that to our meeting list.
One comment, this would be more of an informational, receiving of information from the legislative body versus promoting to the legislative body the views of the board. Is that correct?
It's actually, I see it as serving both.
Yeah, I think it could work both ways.
Yeah, okay. I think if that, I would like to see some written out about how we go about that, because I want to be sure that the board here has the ability to comment and understand what's being projected to the legislative body from our views. And so I think as long as we have a pretty good policy around how we form our statement from us, then I think that's reasonable to form something like that.
Role and responsibility of the district that go into a policy.
And just how things get communicated, because now you're going to communicate to the state as a whole how this board functions. Whereas before, while there is public insight into this, if you're having direct legislative contact scheduled, we need to, at least in my opinion, make sure that we understand what's being projected forward from the board.
And I would say any formal communication like that would require board approval.
Awesome. I just had to state it out there.
Yeah,
I figured everybody's thinking the same thing.
great.
I'm in full support of it as a policy geek anyway. And actually would like to join the committee, but I think especially with the changes that are coming, whatever they are at the federal level, the increasing impact that say Medi-Cal dollars at Calian are having on services really are things that we should watch as a district.
Okay.
So if I might, could I just get my 2 cents in here, Carol? Kimberly, I think this is a great idea. This is a pretty common practice to have a standing committee. It's a legislative committee that discusses these things with the lobbyists and others as we move through the legislative process. And to address your question, Doctor, they only recommend things. They keep the board informed. There may be, they'll be able to highlight important bills, and they simply can recommend to the board with respect to positions, but ultimately it's going to be you all who will decide whether you're going to be for something or not. And they're not going to be, they're going to be working with their lobbyists, but these are great committees. And I think particularly of what's going on, it's probably very good to have something like that. Particularly because the district's growing in importance.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Any comments from the public? Comments? You have a motion?
Right, that already.
Did Greg make a motion?
Not really, but I kind of did, yeah. So I'll make the motion that we establish a standing legislative policy committee.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, motion and seconded. Do we need a roll call?
I don't believe so.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passed. Thank you.
Okay, so next item on the agenda then is the informational. It does show the updated meeting dates, times. One to highlight is the monthly board meeting will be same day, but beginning at 4 p.m. instead of 5:30 p.m. And then the other committees have the dates and times they're available. I had distributed this schedule to all the directors previously. And then we did add the legislative committee as well, assuming that it would be approved to add this evening. And so we would need to have that committee filled. President Rogers, if you have some assignments or want to work with the board and who would like to volunteer to serve on that committee. But that committee is then proposed to be on the second Tuesday at 10:30, and that aligns with one of the meeting times that we currently have scheduled with the lobbyist firm. And then you'll see that the finance committee will be conducted on the second Tuesday, 3 p.m. at the RAP office, our satellite office here on the RAP campus. Program committee will be the second Thursday at 12 p.m. also at the RAP office. The hospital lease oversight committee will be conducted quarterly on the third Thursday, 9:30 a.m. at the district office. The strategic planning committee will be held quarterly on the second Thursday, 1:30 p.m. at the RAP office. And the board and staff communications and policies committee will also be held quarterly on the second Thursday at 4 p.m.
And committee attendance is mandatory physically now.
Yeah, and this is all in person.
In-person meeting.
Yeah, so all the committee meetings will follow the same guidelines as the monthly board meeting for Brown Act purposes.
Madam President.
And this is effective in March. Thank you.
I do have a comment. On the change of time to board meetings, I just wanted to, I was a little bit surprised by that because we hadn't had any discussion, but I do remember that we changed a lot of our meetings to make a greater effort to be able to connect with our community and trying to make sure that we were accessible to them. We've been meeting most of our committee meetings and the board meetings in the evening for several years now. And unfortunately, I haven't seen the response that I was thinking that we are after to get more people here. And the change in the time to daytime, I think it actually might make it more possible for people that have an interest, like Todek, to actually, who have an interest in a particular topic, to actually be able to participate either in person or by Zoom, because, you know, in the evening, it's hard. It's hard after working, after school. And so it is hard for people to take a greater interest in attending meetings. So I am supportive of it for that purpose, is to make sure that we are making every effort to connect with our community and hear from them. So I hope that we are able to not turn anybody away from that possibility with this change. I hope that we can actually make it more feasible for them to participate. So I am supportive.
Thank you. Any other comment? Any comments from the public? Move on. D.
Okay, next agenda item is amending and restated bylaws for the district. And these follow the prior actions that were just taken. So item I is resolution 25-01. And this is an update to the bylaws to change the time of the monthly board meeting from 5:30 to 4 p.m. So that is taken by action on the resolution for the time change. So that would be considered for action purposes, and then we'll move on to the next item.
Any comment? Receive a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Director Shore. All in favor, please say aye.
Public
Aye.
comments.
We have public comments.
Oh, sorry, public comment.
There are none.
Thank you for help. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions, motion carried. Okay,
Item 2 under that agenda item is Article 6. For the committees, we would be adding the legislative committee to the bylaws as a standing committee. And so that's, and you have in your packet the red line version of the bylaws with a completed version that will become our new bylaws with those two changes, the time change to the monthly meeting and then adding the committee.
And move approval.
Second that.
seconded by Director Shore. All in favor, please say aye.
Public comment?
Of course,
Okay.
sorry, comments. Go ahead, Director Laura.
Oh, public comments.
Oh, public comments. Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Right. And hearing no public comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, none, motion carried.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the CEO engagements and district media visibility. That report is included in the packet if there should be any questions or comment.
Madam President, I wasn't sure whether I would bring it up here or at the end of board comments. So it's about one of the meetings that the CEO reported on that I would like to share a little bit of information. Okay, so on January 30th, there was an inaugural meeting of the Eastern Riverside and Imperial County Collaborative. This was put on in partnership with several healthcare providers, including Intercare, DAP Health, Eisenhower Health, and Imperial Valley Healthcare District. And they, the purpose of the meeting was to work together to explore a regional model to bring medical education to fill the gap and build a smart regional healthcare infrastructure. So this meeting was opened by Congressman Dr. Raul Ruiz. And there was some really good speakers that talked about the collective impact framework that would be the goal to be able to advance this project forward and to be able to work together collaboratively and to create policy, government procedure, and be able to improve the condition of our healthcare infrastructure, which lacks doctors immensely. So I was really pleased to be there representing my day job, Regional Access Project Foundation. This was the first meeting. I anticipate that there will be future meetings to tell us about how this effort is moving forward. You know, we have major healthcare challenges, and other partners besides the healthcare providers that I mentioned also included One Future Coachella Valley, Imperial Valley Area Health Education Center, and UT University Medical School, and the Inland Empire Health Plan, and the Imperial County Local Health Authority. So it was a good group, good conversation. I look forward to hearing more about it, and I hope that Chris will be able to attend that meeting in the future to report back to our board on how things are coming along. So thank you.
Yeah, and to follow up with that, I had attended the meeting, but I had communicated with the facilitator that it was an 11 to 1 o'clock, I think, type meeting, or maybe 2 o'clock. And I indicated that I had to leave by 12 o'clock, but if the first hour was communicating about what the meeting was that would be beneficial, and I got confirmation that was the case. When I arrived, the actual lunchtime was from 11 to 12. So unfortunately, I was there, but I did not get to participate with the meat of the meeting. So
You didn't even eat.
Comment on this?
Go ahead. The public
I'd
comment,
like to
please.
inquire why the Desert Care Network was excluded from this collaborative, given our position in servicing this community.
Very good question. I hope Chris will deliver that question back to the people that organized it.
We have the training programs to go.
Okay?
happy to do that, and you as a participant from RAB could do the same. And also being on the board of Intercare.
Any other comments?
I just think it is a good question, and if
Absolutely.
you can just agree on, because this is a healthcare district and she's addressing it to the healthcare district. I'm not representing the healthcare district on this effort, so I don't want to be as overstepping my role.
We'll allow our CEO to address that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I will.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Any other public comments? Okay, moving on to legal, Jeff Scott.
Oh, thank you, Carol. I'm sorry I'm not there this evening, but I thought it would be prudent not to expose you guys. I think you could appreciate that. You know, I got to tell you that I think it's really inspiring as an attorney to hear passionate, smart, dedicated lawyers like Miss Gallegos. And you know, as an attorney who's been practicing for a long time, it gives me hope that we have a great generation. And I thought she was very inspirational tonight. With respect to the validation process, we're moving through that process. I think everybody, if we were at the Desert Sun, saw the summons, was in the paper. It's been published all over the place. And, you know, we're just going through the requirements of the law in court, and hopefully we'll be able to complete the process within the next 2 weeks. Secondly, I wanted to say that, you know, one of the bills that went through last Friday was AB 259, and that came to my attention. Thank you, Doctor. That bill is actually related to teleconferencing and remote meetings, and I could go into all of that, what all that means, because there's two different ways. We've got the just cause and emergency, and I think I discussed this the other day, and then we've got the old traditional method where you just have to post at the site you're at, and you can attend remotely as long as there's a majority of you at the designated at the district's you're in the jurisdiction of the district. But basically the AB 259, all it does is that right now the emergency and just cause exceptions sunset on January 6th, 2026. So at this point, all this bill, there may be some other things that this bill will do, but at this point, it's just simply deleting the sunsetting of that, so that it would extend the bill further. And let's see, I think that that's about it. I want to thank Director Delara for pointing out how the board should not engage in public with the public under the general public comment, as it's not on the agenda, and it sounds like you've been trained well, so I appreciate that. And then the other thing is that I think that from this side, I can tell you that the quality of the Zoom is much better. We're getting great. I can hear you guys really clearly, and it sounds like you can hear me, even in my fog throat. So, or frog throat rather. So yeah, it's really good. So thank you. That's all I have.
Any comments from the board or the public? Hearing none, let's move on. Committee meetings. First, we have Board and Staff Communication Committee. You'll see the draft meeting minutes in your packet. I have in front of you the ticket distribution policy as item B, BOD 18. I wanted to bring that to your attention only because it was recommended at the policy committee that we eliminate the individual restriction on meeting on the cost of tickets for each individual director. One of the suggestions made was to increase it to $3,000 each person. But I wanted to bring your attention to a handout that I gave to you, which shows you just what my ticket policy total is for the year to date, which is over 8,000 just for me. And I think that as your representative of the board to the public, to the community, that ticket policy is restricted. I show you that I gave you links to other districts in the state that have zero ticket policy in their bylaws. The only one healthcare district in the state that has a ticket policy is Grossmont, and that's, I'm sure, thanks to Jeff. And what I would recommend is that we just delete the individual budget amount and stick with the total budget for the district. So that doesn't change any expenditure on our part. And that just allows each one of us to attend the meetings that we feel that we can and eliminate the individual maximum. Is there any public discussion?
I have something to say.
Is there any board discussion?
I have something to say. I think at the meeting, we said we would think about maybe 2,500, raising it up to 2,500. But we mostly brought it to the board so that we can discuss it as a whole. If the rest of the board members thought 2,500 was a good amount.
Or 3,000. I think we increased it to 3,000.
We said 2,500.
I think it was 3,000.
It's been 2,500. It was proposed to increase it to 3,000. And that was the direction from the
Increased prices, inflation, we increased it to 3,000.
Okay, so 3,000.
Right.
and that was the recommendation that came from the committee to the board, but to be for further discussion.
Yeah, more discussion. We are the only district in California that has a limit on directors' expenditures for tickets.
Well, I'm gonna state my opinion. I did at the meeting. I do not feel comfortable with it being raised a lot more than 3,000 for myself, because I feel that although we are representing our community at those events, we could also find events that are less money. I don't feel comfortable spending my constituents' money that way, because some of those things are things that they can't even, have for themselves. So I just don't feel comfortable spending more than that, but that's just my opinion. Everybody else has their opinion, so.
I appreciate the fact that board members want to attend events. I feel it's my obligation to attend as many events as I can attend. I try to attend as many as I can. Many of them are for a fee, but many of them are for free also. I was a little bit surprised, as I shared at the committee, that when we adopted this policy, we decided to see how it worked out. So I was a little bit surprised when I contacted Andrea and I asked her, where am I? Because I want to know, what, how is it working for me? And she actually surprised me by telling me I was less than $500 into this. And I attend a lot of events throughout the year, okay? And so I thought, okay, well, it's working for me. I haven't heard anybody else from board members bringing this as a problem, because that was the idea, is we're gonna evaluate all board members and see whether it works or not. I do have a problem not having a limit, because in the last couple of years, we have been working towards more accountability, having limits to ensure that we don't have a problem in the future. And if we didn't have some of these policies that we just adopted in the last couple of years, we wouldn't have a policy about meals and about cost of conferences and the safeguards that we have to ensure that we don't have a problem. So by not having a limit, I think we are welcoming the possibility that there could be a problem. I believe that when we adopt the policy, that we are going to not make everybody happy in our constituency. They're going to complain that you mean you're increasing it to $3,000? That's a lot of money, but we can substantiate it. We can defend it, but not having a policy, it is harder to defend it. You only are going to defend it when there's a problem. I don't want to get to a problem. I want to be able to defend it, that we evaluated it, we'll continue, if it becomes a problem, then we look at whether there's enough of a reason to increase it, but whether it's 5,000, then that's what we should, if the dollar amount, whatever the dollar amount that's agreed upon by the district, I think whatever that dollar amount, I'll be okay. But not having a dollar amount makes me uncomfortable. So I am okay with moving forward with the $3,000, the increase by $500 to $3,000 at this point.
Like leaving the cap.
Leaving it at $3,000 point.
Any other discussion?
So if I might just interject, if it's okay, this whole thing, just so everybody understands what a ticket distribution policy is all about, because sometimes it's misunderstood. A number of years ago, the city of San Diego had a box at the stadium for Charger games, and they had like 50 tickets or something there, and it turned into, they were giving these tickets out to everybody, and it was just, I mean, it really, the FPPC got very upset about it, so laws were passed and rules were made to control the distribution and establish a procedure for the distribution and use of reporting of tickets or passes in compliance with California law. Yeah. Now, the advantage, and I want to emphasize this, of having an adopted ticket policy is that the tickets and passes both are complimentary, whether they're complimentary, they're given to the district, or whether they're purchased by the district, they're not treated as gifts to public officials, and they're not subject to the gift limitation rules, and not treated like as income to the public official, and do not have to be reported on your FPPC 700 forms. Okay, and that's really a nice advantage not to have that, so that it doesn't complicate that. And we have the policy is well, frankly, it's very common. There are tons of cities and districts that have ticket distribution policies, and it complies with all the provisions of the FPPC. And, if you get a chance, I would invite you to look at the policy and how board members are authorized to request the purchase of these tickets, but they've got to meet these events and passes or tickets or passes. They need to meet the public purposes test that are outlined in the policy, and you can get up to 2 tickets for those events. And you know, it's got to be something where the district is, you know, it's in a district event, or it's a promotion of the district, or it increases public exposure and awareness and everything like that. So I think it's really important that you're aware of what the policy is, and take some time if you get a chance to review it. But as far as what the limit is, that's a political decision, and that's up to you as the board. So thank you for letting me indulge on this a little bit.
Any other discussion?
May I make a comment? One thing that I think we overlooked here by increasing the individual level, I would recommend that we increase the total budget amount, because it was 20,000. So if we're increasing the individual level, I would recommend increasing that overall level for budget purposes to 24,000.
I'll move approval, the change to the ticket policy to increase it to 3,000 and to also reflect that in our budget.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Public discussion? We'll need a roll call.
Yes, Director Perezquio,
Yes.
Director Shore,
Yes.
Director DeLauro,
Yes.
Director Logston had to leave for an emergency, Secretary Barraza,
Yes.
Vice President Rodriguez.
Yes.
And President Rogers.
No.
Okay.
On to AB 2019. Did you want to address that?
Sure. So it was suggested at one of our prior board meetings that we take a look at, you know, there was a lot of discussion around the AB 2019 with regard to the limitations that we have as directors and as staff in communicating with community organizations, grantees, et cetera, approaching them with, you know, specific discussion about a grant or those kinds of things. And so the intent of the bill that was authored by Assemblymember Aguiar Curry has those restrictions in it. And so I've initiated conversation with our lobbyists, and so they're researching it more. They have a good relationship with the member, and so they're exploring some ways to communicate with the assembly member to see if there's ability for some broader opportunity for districts to be able to communicate with public CBOs, et cetera, you know, because these are going to be things that we're going to need to be considering as we do our strategic planning process, and how if we're able to consider doing facilities in the underserved areas based on the new lease terms, et cetera, the hospital, you know, being able to engage ourselves and how we can be able to do that without violating the terms of this bill. So there's some steps in process, engaging with our lobbyists to see if there's ways that we can broaden that, get better explanation if we're being too restrictive with the bill as it is worded now. So anyway, that's just an update on that at this point.
And it will be on the new standing legislative committee agenda to follow. Okay, any comments, any public comments, board comments? Strategic Planning Committee, Greg, did you want to?
Yes, the minutes are in the packet. Basically, we have one item, we had a really quick meeting, which was nice. Basically go over, I want to thank actually staff for the report because it was really detailed. So I really appreciate that. But basically, we are asking for action for the consideration of approving the RFP or request for proposal for the consultant that facilitates the strategic plan.
I'll move approval. Oh, I'm sorry, public.
Public comments?
No.
Board comments? May I have a motion?
I will move approval of the RFP, to the
Seconded by Director Baraza. Did this require a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Director Perezkiel,
Yes.
Director Shore,
Yes.
Director Delara,
yes.
Secretary Baraza,
Yes.
Vice President Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Rodriguez.
Yes. Program Committee, Director Perez-Gill.
Okay, so we had the draft, we went over the draft meeting minutes from February 11th. Wait. In the packet, the draft meeting minutes from February 11th are included. Does anyone have any questions regarding the draft meeting minutes? Okay. Also included in the packet are progress and financial reports updates. Does anyone have any questions regarding the financial reports update? We also have the grant application status report included in the packet. Does anyone have any questions regarding the information provided? We also have the grant payment schedule in the packet. Does anyone have any questions regarding the grant payment schedule?
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
No public comment.
Hearing none, we'll move to Finance, Legal, Administration, Real Estate Committee.
I'll be happy to stand in for
Thank
Dr.
you.
Hodgson. We just approved the minutes, if you will, February 11th, and discussed the process for requesting RFPs from our financial advisors. And all that's listed in the packet.
Thank you. Any public comment? Any board comments? Moving on to old business, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, CV Link for progress report.
I just have a point of information. I'm a little confused after listening to our counsel about the bill that suspends the emergency limitations. I got the impression that you can attend a meeting by Zoom as long as there's a quorum at the physical site of the meeting. Did I misunderstand something?
Yes. No, I wasn't articulating very well. You're correct. As long as there's a quorum at the physical location, then you can participate remotely. And there's two ways. There's the traditional way, which you post an agenda and make it accessible to the public, or the other more modern way, which allows you a couple of times a year to, if you get sick or you have to take care of somebody, you can also participate as long as you let the board know beforehand. So
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Back to the PBAG progress report. Yeah.
So the fourth quarter report is in the packet for information purposes, provided by CVAG, that gives the update on CV Link and any challenges and the project progress that they're making.
Any comments or questions about the CBAG report? Go ahead.
So I'm pleased to see that the project is going to be completed on 6/30/2025. I'm looking forward to getting the invitation for the grand opening on the spring of 2025. What I am curious about is I keep driving by a lot of these cross sections, and I see that it looks really nice. They're starting to become more noticeable, visible to me. But I haven't seen the number of people that I was hoping to see by this time. I know I've asked this question of some people in the West End, that there seems to be more usage on the West End, but I'm hoping that as these projects reach completion, that there'll be some more public awareness, more PR to hopefully bring more numbers, usage to not only the East End, but throughout. But I haven't seen one person using it yet.
I saw one.
Have you? Good. Okay, so I'm hoping that will change.
Yeah, and I think once it's done, it's more connected. I think that's the confusion. You bring up a great point. I don't think people think
Could see
even
where it
sometimes.
goes.
But
yeah.
when I lived in Messina, that was the first one built. That thing got used constantly. And that's just a short little
Mhm,
thing, so.
mhm.
But I agree. I'm sure CVAC will do that. This has been
Unfortunately,
Tom's baby for you know how long.
unfortunately, at least in the West Valley, in my part of the world, the paint's beginning to fade. Which is something that shouldn't be happening.
Well, and one thing that, you know, it's there and it serves a purpose. It's only as good as it's used. And I have on the street in front of my property, they just painted the stripes on that. And I still see people riding their bicycle on the opposite side of the street. So, you know, what encourages the bikers, walkers, et cetera, to utilize that space that's available for them? I mean, be nice if there was some kind of
Signage.
legal,
something.
well, you know, even, I mean, if they know it's there. I mean, it almost like should be like there's some kind of a citation or something that be issued if they
Right.
don't use that.
Don't use it, yeah.
I still think the CVAG board should consider some mechanism by which they can identify, wrong choice of words, retail space for refreshments and other inducements for people to use the facility, especially people on a long haul race.
Restrooms.
Yeah, exactly,
Water
you know,
station.
and the recent marathon races that have come through the West Valley demonstrate that. They had portable water stations, and they had portable restrooms all along the route, at least in the West Valley.
Yeah, we'll get staff to communicate our concerns to CVAG.
Well, those were brought up
Wait,
for years.
and communicate.
The cost of those are,
District.
it would have been cost prohibitive to do water stations, restrooms. It's a great idea and it should happen.
Great idea. Okay. Any more?
And make it retail, sell a franchise, sell a location. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you go to the swap meet, you see thousands of people back to the swap meet.
Sure, food trucks.
Yeah, food trucks, exactly right. You rent spaces for food trucks
There you
for
go.
certain hours, weekend rentals. It just requires a little creativity.
Okay.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I'm hoping ours will attract more people with the park being built right next.
What, I'm sorry, with what?
With the park being built right next
Yeah,
to it.
well, there you go, that too.
Any more public comments? More board comments? Okay, moving on to board member comments. The only comment that I have is that I sent the CVAG Homeless Committee report to you all through Andrea, hopefully. And what was really interesting was the link that I gave you, we had to do with care courts. And the fact that we were told that every county in the state has a functioning care court committee in process. Maybe Greg, you can expand on that?
Well, we were in the first cohort as Riverside County. And we have cases going through. The majority are not homeless individuals. There are a few. That was the original intent. But it is a great alternative court program. The biggest thing to keep in mind is it's voluntary. So it's a voluntary program. So, you know, people can drop in and out. But it is another tool in the box. So.
Tool in the box. Okay. Any other board member comments? Hearing none, let's do a 10-minute adjournment. 7:58.